Hi. Since the dawn of spreadsheets, users have been working with relative referencing. In the sense, a cell is referred by its address, which in turn is driven by its row and column coordinates. In the sense, if a cell is in the fourth row, third column, it will have an address called C4, and a user decides which cell has to be linked to which cell. It seems to be working fine for a lot of us, but it has a lot of limitations. At a very rudimentary level, one problem is that as more data gets added to the file, the cells and formula will have to be manually modified. So you will have to probably copy paste some formula. Now all these requires manual intervention. And we know that to err is human. So if there is a manual intervention that's required, that means there's a chance of error that comes into picture. But now we have a new paradigm that changes the way we work with spreadsheets. And this is available in Microsoft Excel. And this new paradigm is all about doing spreadsheet computing using tables and dynamic arrays. Now, table has been there for a long time. It was there in Office 2007, and even before that, we used to have a feature similar to table called as list. But dynamic array is a fairly new feature. Now, to give you some introduction, a table is something that organizes your cells into a logical set of fields and records. Now, this brings in a lot of additional capabilities to us. For example, I can create a pivot table that can pull data from multiple tables. From a financial modeling perspective, again at a rudimentary level, the advantage of table is that as your data keeps growing, your table keeps growing. And that means all the formulas that are linked to the table automatically updates themselves. Now, table works fine when your input grows. But what if the size of my output grows? That's where the new dynamic array feature comes in. And these two combined together can really do wonders to us when it comes to financial modeling and data analytics. With that introduction, let me take you through a webinar that I conducted a few weeks back. In the webinar, I shared a lot of interesting examples about what can be done with tables and dynamic arrays in terms of new possibilities, as well as improvements to the things that we have already been doing with spreadsheets. Hope you find this useful. So now I'll leave you with the webinar. Thank you. Hi. So to start with, I'll set the agenda for today. First thing we're going to talk about is what is in it for you with Microsoft Excel tables and dynamic array. There are a lot of new things that's happening, which we have been learning. I mean, a lot of new functions, new functionalities, charts that's been coming here. So what is in it this? Why do I think it's going to be a new paradigm in spreadsheet computing? We'll start with that. Then we'll talk about a little bit of dynamic array, what it is, how it works. As part of my registration link, I had shared with you some of my data points with regard, some of my YouTube videos. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. So some of these things we've already discussed, but we'll also discuss that here. And post that, I'll demonstrate some new functions that have come as part of our dynamic array. And we will also illustrate the entire dynamic array with certain examples. And through these simple examples, but where we'll see the power of dynamic array with tables. So what is in it for you when it comes to dynamic arrays? Now, this dynamic array, I'm talking not just from a modeling perspective, also from a modeling as well as analytics perspective. When you think of it, dynamic array brings to you a lot of new possibilities. Some of the things that wouldn't be existing in the past. And it also improves a lot of existing things. Now, I'll just give you a quick idea of what is this new possibility I'm talking about. Let me switch to an Excel file here. So think of it, if I were to do a speech analytics, right? I have a huge list of text here. This is actually some of the latest announcement from RBI. I have a very big text that runs into several lines here. Now, if I have to read such text, right, it could run into many more pages. And let's say as a speech analytics, I want to figure out which of the words are used how often. And if I want to analyze it that way, how do we go about doing that in Excel? Is Excel capable of doing this? But what you can do here is that with dynamic arrays, there are a bunch of functions, and if you use them smartly, you can get all those values in one go. So what I can do is I'm going to maybe just to show you, I'll probably bring in another text from another website if possible. So instead of Reserve Bank of India, let me get some other paragraph from the same text. from the same RBI website. I'm going to copy this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this here. How to do it is something I'll come to it eventually, but I'm going to paste it here. And you notice that for the new text, it's figured out which is the most used words. Right. So there are new possibilities that this brings in, which probably did not exist without dynamic arrays. Right. So we talked about, what are the new possibilities? I just gave you one example. There are a lot more. Some of these things, some of those new things we'll also learn here as part of some of the illustrations that I'll be doing here. Now, next also let's talk about what are the improvements that it brings in. What kind of improvements that it brings in terms of our traditional work areas. So if I were to link something to a particular cell, now if I were to link my revenue from operations to a revenue from operations, in the current approach, what we do is you take your mouse, you go to the other sheet, you select it, and then you carefully choose a cell and you click on that. At 6:30 in the evening when you're exhausted, or 9:30 in the evening when you're exhausted, very high chance that by mistake you select another cell, right? Now you can say this is the user's mistake, but the point is to err is human. The other problem that often, even when you're very careful in making financial models, what leads to a problem later on, if I were to talk about, that happens on account of copy pasting, right? So for example, here I have my financial models for 2019. Let's say up to 2019 has been reported and 2020 is a forecast. Now tomorrow if 2020 actuals come out, so if the actuals for 2020 comes in, what do we do here? So if you look at it, if you've worked on models where in corporate budgeting or in equity research, this is a very common scenario, right? You have actuals for a few years, you have budgets for a few years, and eventually the actuals do come and you have to replace your budgeted number with actuals. Now, if you look at it, what you have to do is you have to copy paste things here. So one of the issues that you need to do is firstly either delete this, because these are all formula based forecast, and punch in numbers. And when you're punching in numbers, some formulas have to be redone, which means whatever control you did earlier. So when you prepared the model, you would have been very careful, or you could have gone through some testing, after which you would have been very careful whether your model is right or not. But right now what's happening is I deleted my 2010, 20, and I'm going to punch this in with new numbers. And when I punch it in with new numbers, I'll have to give a different formula here. This formula should be more in line with my historicals than my forecast. And I may make a mistake while giving this formula because, again, fatigue issues, right? Now, let me talk about, how does my dynamic array fix this issue? Again, as I said, I'll give a detailed illustration where I'll take you through all of these things step by step. But how does Microsoft Excel dynamic array fix this? Let me give you a quick example here. I have a Microsoft model which is done using the dynamic array. You have 11 to 18. Now, if you look at it, I have actuals from 2011 to financial year 18. I also have 19 number, but for a moment I'm going to pretend I don't have 19. So if you look at it, my income statement flows from 18. My forecast starts only from 19 onwards. And when I update my income statement with 2019 numbers to 2020 numbers, or rather when I add this 2019 to my historical data, I don't have to make any changes to my forecast. My forecast automatically increases to starts from 2020. And if I were to go to my historical data, or rather if I have to look at my output sheet, 2019, it pretty much categorizes it part of the historical data and pulls the data from 2019 historical statement, and 2020 will be pulled up from my forecast. So by making sure that it automates things, that once you do it, it automates a lot of things. It ensures that you don't face a problem later on. All right. So again, I'll wait for a couple of minutes for your questions. Then I'll start with illustrations. Okay, so a lot of questions about how do we do this? What have we done here? That's what a lot of questions have come here. I will take you through about all these questions. Firstly, I'm going to introduce you to some of the functions that are there in dynamic array, and more importantly, what is dynamic array? Where can you use it? As far as dynamic array is concerned, let me open another file and illustrate that to you. So what is dynamic array? Dynamic array is essentially a function that you use in MS Excel, which automatically spills over, I mean, which pulls multiple values, and because there are multiple values, it automatically spills it over other cells. So if I'm going to use a transpose function, what a transpose function essentially does is it converts the rows into columns and columns into rows. Now this already existed in Office 2010, 13, everything, but it was not dynamic. So here when I use transpose, this function pulls me an array of data, right? By array of data we mean many rows and columns of data. So it's going to fetch me 3 columns of data and around 11 rows of data here, and it's going to convert the rows into columns and columns into rows. I'm putting this formula only in one cell, and it automatically fills up all other cells because that's the shape of the data. Now, in which versions of Excel does these functionalities exist? So if you think of it, these functionalities exist in Office 365, Office Online, and Zoho Sheets. So if you don't have Office 365 with you, or even if you're using an enterprise license, a lot of times your company IT team might not have activated this yet. But if you want to practice this, you can create a free license for yourself in office.com and you can try it out. Now let me show you some illustrations. So let me have here a simple depreciation schedule that I'm going to create. So if I'm going to buy a car, let's say a car for a value of 1050,000, let's say scrap value is 50,000. So let me also have that here. So if these are my scrap values and original purchase price, that means my annual and let's say life of the car is 10 years. If you know the straight line method, then we would know that the annual depreciation should be 10,50,000 minus 50,000 divided by 10. Right? It should be 1 lakh. Now, in a traditional approach, what we would have done is we would have created here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have created a list of cells. These are going to be my years. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we might have as well had 2010, 2011, etc. And then you would have started with the opening balance, which is 1050, and then you would put a depreciation, which is 1 lakh, and then you would have a closing balance, which should be 1050 minus 1,50,000. Now you do it for 1 year, and then you will have to repeat the same process for all the years, right? Of course, we rely a lot on copy pasting, but we would have to do this. But with dynamic array, what I could do, I will be explaining that I'll demonstrate that shortly. What I could do is I can just give one formula which can dynamically spread across 10 years. For this, there are certain bunch of functions that we'll have to learn which are existing. So we'll understand some of these functions. So the first function I'm going to talk to you about is a sequence function. So what a sequence function does, it's that it merely creates a sequence of numbers for me. I'm simply going to put equals sequence. Let us say if I type 10, it's going to create a sequence of 10 letters for me. Nothing else. It doesn't do anything else. But this functionality is of very big use to us. So what I'm going to do, just to show you here, instead of typing this year of 1 to 10 manually, I could use a sequence function to generate this. Equals sequence function of 10. Gives me the 10 value. So tomorrow, if somebody were to management were to change their estimates of life of car, all they have to do is change it to 8, and it becomes 8. That's what the sequence function does. Now within the sequence function, there are some more variations that exist. What is this variation? So the first sequence function we created generated 10 rows of data. I'm going to create one more sequence function here, which is going to generate 10 columns of data. So let me create sequence 1, 10, sequence of 1, 10, where what I'm essentially saying is I want one row of data and 10 columns of data. And when I specify, you notice that I got a dynamic array of 10 columns that spread across, right? Now, what if I don't want it to increase by 1? Now, what if I wanted, let's say, a same numbers coming again and again? I want a number 1 coming multiple times. So if I were to type it like this, equals sequence, start from 1, and I want 10 columns of data, right? Almost like what we did. But here you could also specify start value and step value. So if I specify my start as 1, which means the starting value will be 1, and by default the step value is also 1. So that's why you see on the top it increased from 1, 2, 3, 4. Every value increased by 1. But if I put the step value of 0, it's going to give me values as ones for 10 times. Now what does this mean and how can I use it? Let's come back to the same depreciation schedule. So this is a straight line depreciation, so I don't want to type this 1,25,000 and copy paste it. If it is 8 years, I want this depreciation of 125 to automatically come across all the 8 years. And if it's 10 years, I want it to automatically spread. So what I can do is, because keep in mind a sequence function's job is to create a spilled list of values. And what we created here with the sequence function, as you noticed, was a spilled list of ones, merely ones. So if I multiply a particular value with a spilled list of ones, what will I get? That particular value, right? What I'm going to do. But before we move on, let me start bringing in some of the best practice that we need to follow. So annual depreciation, I'm going to name it as, let's say, just DEPN. DEPN stands for depreciation. And how do you name a cell? You select the cell, and to the left of your formula bar, you give a name. And even this life of car, let me call it as expected life. So I'm going to name this cell as EXP life. So I select this cell. To the left of my name box, I'm going to type it as EXP life. Now what I'm going to do, so I want depreciation times as many times as we want. So let's use a sequence function. Sequence of how many times do we want? We want it as many times as expected life of the car. We just want one column of data here because my depreciation is only in one column. The start value is 1 and step value is 0. I select it, I press enter. Now you notice I've got depreciation for 8 years automatically populated. Should someone change my life of car to 10, this depreciation is going to automatically spread to 10 years. Why? Because that's how our sequence function is designed. But I'll select this particular cell and I'll name it as an acronym that sounds like yearly depreciation. So YLY DEPN. So this is going to be my yearly depreciation, and my closing balance cell where I'm going to type it, that's going to be, let me just call it as closing balance or closing balance of asset. CLOBALFA, that's the name I'm giving here. Same way, opening balance cell, I'll refer this particular cell as OPBALFA, opening balance of fixed asset, and maybe the year I'll call it as YR. Now what should be our closing balance? Closing balance has to be opening balance plus depreciation. Now our opening balance is also going to be a dynamic array. Depreciation is also going to be a dynamic array. I mean, closing balance has to be opening balance minus depreciation, but our depreciation numbers are already shown in negative here. So what you can do is you can put your opening balance as, our closing balance is going to be opening balance plus depreciation. But what we need to do is, we are not referring to an individual cell. We are referring to an array, a dynamic array. And when you're referring to a dynamic array, you have to use an hash sign. And when you use the hash sign, you would notice that it will treat it as a dynamic array. The opening balance, of course, is not spilled yet. We haven't put any formula there, so which is fine. Let me press enter. So right now it has an error, reference error, because the opening balance is not a spill variable. If I create as a spill variable, for now let me just use a function here. So if I use any function here, or if I just make it into a sequence of 10 just for the sake of it, you will notice that these values follow. But of course the opening balance doesn't make sense, right? Now what should be our opening balance? Now our opening balance should be, for the first year, the opening balance should be the original purchase price of the car. And for subsequent years, it should be original purchase price of the car plus previous depreciation, right? Or in other words, it should be the previous year's closing balance. Now this is going to be slightly tricky to do, not slightly, pretty much tricky to do in dynamic array, but when you understand the basic mathematics, this is going to be easy. A traditional intuitive approach is going to be a little complicated here. So because how you would do it is something like this. For the first year, I mean, if you have to do it normally, this is how you would do it. If it is going to be if my year is going to be 1, Then I would like to get the first year value. Let me use a year hash because the year is a spill range. If the year is equal to 1, then I want the starting value. Else, I want the closing balance that's in the previous column, right? You would probably go there and select it. Now, when you do this, you're going to have a circular reference error because in dynamic array, two arrays cannot interact with each other. So that's why it gives us a circular reference error. So, but how, of course, I can handle this. So what I am going to do is, I'm going to just apply small mathematics here because if it's, for example, 3 years, if I'm in the third year, then we would have already depreciated for 2 years. So my opening balance would be original purchase price minus 2 times of my depreciation. Similarly, if I'm in 10th year, my opening balance of asset would be original purchase price minus 9 times the depreciation. Correct? So that's what I'm going to do here. But before doing that, let me also name the original purchase price. Let me call it as original cost, ORG cost. So it's going to be equal to ORG cost minus depreciation, which is annual depreciation, times. If I'm in the first year, obviously it would have depreciated. I would have depreciated for 0 times. I mean, I wouldn't have depreciated at all at the beginning. So I'm going to add here a hash minus 1. So if for each year, look at the number of years, which year we are in, and minus 1. Because if I'm in 10th year, we have to depreciate for 9 years. You just select that, press enter, and you notice that we've got the entire schedule down. Now you could have easily done it with copy pasting. So you might be thinking, is it really worth the effort that I'm doing it this way? Now, why should I take all these efforts? The best part about what we did here is agility it brings to our model. Let me on the sides, very quickly do it in the traditional approach. Let me do the very traditional way. I would have kept it as, 1. I would have created a serial number like this. So what I would have done is the opening balance would have been, to start here, would have been equals 1050. Depreciation would have been minus of depreciation. Closing balance would have been opening balance plus depreciation. Or in a sense, plus of minus depreciation. And in the subsequent years, you would link your opening balance to previous year's closing balance. Testing this to create an entire schedule. It would have been much easier, it's intuitive. So why should I take all the pain? The pain comes in because let's say when you're building a model or an asset schedule, tomorrow you deal with another asset which has a life of only 8 years. Now when I change it to 8, you notice that the array we created or the model we created using dynamic array is self-updating. It's coming only for 8 years. Whereas the other model which you did is giving us wrong answers for year 9 and 10. And you will have to probably every time come and delete it and move on. This is just to give you one example of how this can give us what kind of implication it can have in the financial field. So now let me take you some questions. The questions I said, is in the next monitor. So let me take some questions. How do I decide whether to put an hash? That's the next question, or that's the last question I have here. Whenever you're referring to a range, which is a spilled range meaning, so when I'm giving a formula here, if I want an array to come here, so I want to refer to the opening balance net of depreciation and I want to have this variable spill across. My formula has to spill across. Then you have to give it as opening balance hash, because why I'm using the hash is because I'm going to specify here, I'm referring to a spilled range, not to a current cell. That's when you use this hash sign. Depreciation. Right? If you don't use the hash sign, what's going to happen is, if instead of using a hash sign, if I had merely specified it as opening balance, without that, if I specify this depreciation, what you would notice it does is that it simply takes that particular line. It doesn't recognize it as a spilled range. Let's also discuss a few more functions that are there. A very useful function that we're going to work as far as dynamic array is concerned is a XLOOKUP function. What is the XLOOKUP function? XLOOKUP is not actually part of dynamic array, but XLOOKUP has a huge role to play when you're working with dynamic array. So I'll show this to you with the model that I had. So for example, let's say I want to do a volume into price here, right? Now, when I'm doing volume into price, but keep in mind, my input data starts from 2009 onwards. But when I want to do a volume into price, I want to do it based on whichever year we are dealing with. If it's 2012, I want to take 2012 volume multiplied by price. That's what I want to do. So how do we do that? So here is where an XLOOKUP function can be useful. Those of you who know VLOOKUP, you could also probably think of using VLOOKUP here, right? So I can do VLOOKUP for this current year. This again has been named as year. I've named this. This is a different file in which I've named this as year. And then I select this table. This table has again been named as sales data. So comma 2 comma 0 would give your volume, and then you can again multiply it by pretty much the same thing. VLOOKUP for the current year in the sales data 3 comma 0. But what I'm going to do is, instead of using VLOOKUP, I'm going to use XLOOKUP. The reason is XLOOKUP is more efficient when you're working with it. So I'll start with XLOOKUP. I'm going to select this year YR. So I want to get this. I want to look up for the year in the sales data, and you specify the column. The column is year. You specify this, right? You don't specify the entire table. Then you specify what columns from which you want to pull the data from. So I want to pull the data which is quantity. Now this entire range, I showed you how to name a range. So this entire range was named as sales data. So from the same table, pull me the quantity, or rather volume. And the best part about XLOOKUP is, in VLOOKUP we saw that we first used a VLOOKUP to pull the volume, and we used another VLOOKUP to pull the price. That's kind of doing the same operation twice. Whereas in XLOOKUP, you look up once and you can do the operations right away. So I'm going to take sales data volume multiplied by sales data price. So this is what an XLOOKUP does. So in XLOOKUP, just to repeat, you select a range or you select a year, select a lookup value, then select the column in which you're looking up for, and then you specify the corresponding array. So this is not a corresponding column. In VLOOKUP, you give a column index. Here you are specifying a column vector or a result vector from where you are pulling up the data for, right? And XLOOKUP can be used vertically as well as horizontally. So it can do the job of both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP put together. And if you see, I got the sales here. Now, where is the dynamic array component here? So if you look at it, the year that we have, the year was not manually punched in. It's not 2012 to 15 that's manually punched in. On the top, I obtained the inputs for start year 2012 and number of years as 5. And then using a sequence function, I've got the years 2012 to 2016 automatically spill. By spilling, I mean I give you a formula in one single cell and it automatically spills. So now in XLOOKUP, what I can do is, I can start with XLOOKUP, followed with the year. Then I'm going to specify, no, I'm not referring to the current cell called year. I'm referring to a spilled range starting at this current cell year. And how do you specify that? Put a hash. Once you specify that, you just press enter. You notice that you've automatically got the entire range of data. Now the beauty of XLOOKUP over VLOOKUP is not just in terms of being able to do an operation in the cell, but because XLOOKUP can do the role both vertically as well as horizontally. If you look at what I have at the bottom, here I have the same set of 2012 to 2016 arranged horizontally using a sequence function. So earlier we specified that we want 5 rows and 1 column, and we want the value starting at 2012. Now using a sequence function, what I've done here is I want 1 row and 5 columns starting at 2012. And now all I can do is the same XLOOKUP function that I gave earlier. XLOOKUP, this horizontal here, spill variable starting at horizontal variable, comma, where are we looking for? In sales data in the year column. And what we want sales data volume multiplied by sales data price. You select it and you close it, and you notice that the data automatically spills horizontally. Pretty much the same formula. If you look at it, there is no difference in the formula syntax as such. Here we are referring to the horizontal here, a spilled variable that's spilling horizontally, and here we are referring to the lookup value, we are giving a spill variable that's spilling vertically. That's the only part that's changing. Everything else is fine, but my XLOOKUP is able to handle it both horizontally and vertically. So that is why XLOOKUP is going to be a very powerful formula when you start working with dynamic arrays. Now, what is the role of table? Let's also talk about that. So now I'm going to give you another example here. And this example is going to be based on, let's say, personal finance example. So this is something I thought we'll discuss in the class. Let us say very simply, there are 2-3 annuity plans. Now, an insurance companies are giving you 3 plans where you have to do an initial investment of, let us say, 100,000 per annum for of 5 years. And for as far as your repayment is concerned, returns are concerned, starting year for your returns, let's say year for annuity, let's say from 7th year onwards, let's say they'll give you money back. There are a lot of policies like this which are running in the market. And for how much amount and how much, for how long will you get the returns, the annuity amount. This, a lot of them, if you look at any of these insurance contracts, they come up with a plan like this. So they will give you an option. They may tell you, there are 3 options for you, option A, B, C. And in case of option A, you will get it for, let's say, 5 years. And option B, you can withdraw your money for 10 years. And in option C, you can get your money back for 15 years. You can get regular income, right? Regular income for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. If you opt for a 5-year plan, then the regular income would be, let us say every year I'll give you 125,000 or 140,000. If you opt for 10 years, let's say I'm going to give you, because you're asking for a more 10-year period, I'll probably give you, let's say 115. And if you ask for 15 years, I'll maybe give you 90,000. Let us say this is the plan. Now, these amounts are not kept as a table. It's a table for you and me. And let me just tell you what I mean by table in MS Excel. Now, this one, if you just draw a nice border, you and I will think of this as a table. But question is, does Excel know that this range is a table? Right? Does Excel know the relationship between these values? Now, these set of values here have nothing to do with probably these set of values, right? My 1,40,000 has nothing to do with this text here called as initial investment. So just like these two are unrelated, there is as far as Excel is concerned, even these two are unrelated. It doesn't know the relationship. You and I know it because for human, this is readable. Machine does not read the relationship. But when you mark this area as a table, this relationship gets shown. So if I have to insert it as a table here, how do I make it into a table? You select this range, click on insert tables and mark this as a table. And once this becomes a table, I don't need the borders anymore. I'll get rid of the borders. Once this becomes a table, how do I know this has become a table? If you carefully notice at the end of this, you will notice a inverted L. And most of these tables come with a default name. If I select this table and go to the table design, I see a default name for it called table 6. Now I can give my own name here. I can give it as, let's say, annuity options, option OP, right? So once I've given it, this table will now be called as annuity options. Otherwise, you can refer to the same table as table 6. How does naming this help? And how does this tie with a dynamic array? So firstly, what's going to happen is, I want an end user to give us an option, choose the option. Let's say if you want option A, B or C, right? And if it's option A, I want to pay them for 140,000 for 5 years. Now, how do I do it? We could use a XLOOKUP here, XLOOKUP for, and this particular cell, let me name that as well. Option chosen, P choice. Give a descriptive name, whatever you think is descriptive. So I'm going to use equals XLOOKUP, OP choice, option choice. In the annuity options, we're going to say now look for the options column. That is where you have to look up. And once you look up, where do we need to pick up the data from? From the same annuity option table, pick up the data from the income column, because that's what mentions what is going to be my annual income. And same way, I could use the same XLOOKUP function here. I'll just copy and paste this, and here I wanted the tenure, so I'm going to take annuity table, annuity option table, 10. You select that. Right? So these are all inputs. Now I'm going to use the same dynamic array as an illustration to show you how this is going to work. Now think of this. This is something that, earlier, if you had to, for 15 years, if I wanted to spread a model, you have to copy paste it for 15 years. If it's 10 years, then you do it for 10 years and delete it. But here with dynamic array, we're going to see how this can be done pretty easily. So let me bring in the year. So there is going to be 7 years of starting period and then another 5 years of annuity period. So total number of rows I need to have is 7 plus 5, 12. Because what I want to do here, let's say I want to know what is my year outflow, inflow. So how much amount I'm going to pay, how much amount I'm going to receive. So what is my net cash flow? And using that, I could probably do an analysis. I can do something like an IRR if I have the data for next several years. So if it's 5 years of payment and the annuity starts from the 7th year onwards, so you'll get money from 7th year and for another 5 years, which means you need to have this rows for 12 rows. So what I'm going to do is, let me also name this cell. This 7 I'm going to call it as start annuity, and annuity period is going to be, let's say, recoup period. Let me just call it that way. You got to keep the name. You have to remember the names, so that it's very important that you name it descriptively. So start annuity year 7 plus 5. So recoup year is 5. I select it. So I get 12 rows of data. Outflow, what are we going to do? You have to pay this amount for 5 years, right? So investment, I'll put it as investment is INV, and this investment period of 5 years is, let me type it as INV years, investment years. So what we're going to do is, if in this particular cell, I'll call it as list or something, this sequence. So I'm going to type equals if your list hash which is less than or equal to investment years. We are going to be paying our investment amount, else we're going to be paying 0. Because it's a dynamic range, again I press enter and you notice that the outflow is coming exactly for 5 years because that's our tenure. As far as the inflow is concerned, when will we get the inflow from? We'll get the inflow from after 7th year. First 7 years, let's say you're not going to get the inflow. From after 7th year, you're going to get this. So here again I can give a formula. If year list is greater than annuity start here or start of the annuity year, that's the name I gave, then I want the annuity amount. I did not name that cell, I should have named it, but it's okay. For now I'll leave it as it is, otherwise it should be 0. We've got this, and our net cash flow is going to be inflow minus outflow. I'll call this range cell as inflow and this one as outflow. I'm going to put my net cash flow as inflow at spill range starting at inflow minus outflow. Now you can easily get an IRR of this range or anything you want to do. So as people play with their options A, B and C, now things automatically update. But why did we make this? Main idea why I took you through this was to take you through the role of table. Why did we make this into a table? What if this was not a table? If this was not a table, what would happen is, let me not have it as a table for now. Let me just remove it as a table. I'll convert this to a range. Now if you convert it to a range, it's a normal range now, it's not a table. If I added one more option called option D, for 20 years you could get 70,000, right? Now you type here D, literally nothing comes, right? Why? Because our range was only up to the first 3 rows. The 4th row does not come here. But if this was a table, I've kept it back as a table. Now if I add D, you notice that my table automatically expands. Change my option to option D, you would notice that the D option is also taken into consideration, and I see my value spilling into 20 years plus the first 7 years. So 27 years it automatically spills, right? Now before I do the counting words, let me quickly take you through some of the functions that have come here. So what are the functions that have come here in dynamic array? If you look at it, this is something I've been saying, I'll take you through. One is what is called as a unique function. So what does a unique function do? So here I have, for example, list of departments, same department coming multiple times. So if I wanted to get unique values from here, normally what you would have done is you would have copied it, pasted it and removed duplicates. That's what we would have done. What I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to use a unique function, unique, select this particular table. It gets me the unique values from this list. As the list keeps growing, because it's a table, you will also notice that our unique function will automatically admin. Tomorrow, I added 2 admin sector employees. You will see that this unique function automatically grows, right? The other function that I'm going to do, filter function. This table is named as table 1. For now, I'm using a default name. Let's say In the table 1, I want to filter for all those employees who are in HR department. So what I can do is I'm going to give a function like this, filter for the in table 1. I want to get table 1 and filter it for a condition. What's the condition? In table 1, I have a department and the department should be equal to HR. Specify this and you notice that I've got all HR department. In fact, the ideal thing is rather than typing the HR here, we should have linked it to this particular cell. Right? It doesn't pull out the heading. It just pulls out the data because the heading is not part of the table. Heading is a separate object called as header. So if you want the headings, what you could have done is you could have simply created a heading here like equals table 1 followed by headers. When you select this, you will get it with the heading. So the headings will come as a separate range here. All right. So that's a filter function. Now you also have a sort function and a sort by function. What's a sort function? Let's say I want to get the same filtered data. Let me apply it right here. I want to get the same filtered data, but let's say I want it sorted based on their serial numbers. Let's say, right now, in fact, it's 2, 4, 9, 13 and 19. It's not working fine. So what you can do is I'm going to use a sort function. Let's say I want it sorted based on the first column, or let's say I want it sorted based on their employee number, right? Or their names. Let me sort it based on their employee names actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type equals sort. You could have directly given the first data here, right? Sort this table based on their employee name, and employee name here, what you're going to do is you're going to give a column index. The employee name is the third column, so I'm going to type it as comma 3. So what happens is the filter function is going to filter the data, but on top of it, I have mentioned that I wanted it sorted based on column 3. Now when I press enter, you notice that the same filtered numbers are sorted. The same list of departments, employees, but it's sorted based on the names. Now let me come to, before others lose patience, let me quickly come to the case study. What did I do there? How did I get this speech analytics done? Right. Here is my data. So what I have done here, if you look at it, the first thing I'm going to do, let me start it from a new cell actually. Right. I'll do it in a new sheet maybe. And here I have the entire text. Just so that you can see the entire thing, let me just merge these cells and wrap the text and widen things here. Now, if you remember, one of the things that I told you was, if you had to get the names extracted, the first step is I have to extract the name. And how do I extract the name? To get the names extracted, what you had to do was this. You have to find out how many spaces exist in your table, and for every space you go to create a separate, break it up separately. I mean where all space occurs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out where the space occurs. So find a space in this text, right? Now after specifying in which text you want, you have to specify the next thing here, and that is the starting number. Do you want to start from the beginning? Because if you start from the beginning, then my first space will be in the 4th position. But if I start from the 5th letter, if I don't look at the first 4 letters, if I look at the 5th letter, then I'll have my next space coming in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10th space is where I have the space. So what I'm going to do is I have to specify the start number. But right now I don't know where to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a series of values here. So I'm going to get a sequence of, I'm going to start from every letter. Start from 1 and find out where the first space is. Start from 2 and find out where the second space is. Start from 3 and find out where the space is. That's what I'm going to do. So sequence of length of this cell. Right, length function gives, I'll probably break it here. So the length function gets me how many characters are there. Equals length of this number of characters. So here I'm going to use a find function, find for a space in this text. And where do you start? Which is what should be my starting position? I'm going to say, I don't know what starting position is because there are a lot of letters. Space can come at any point. So starting from every letter, find out where the next space is. Now imagine it's going to start from the first one and find out where the first space comes. It's going to start from the second letter and find out where the space comes. Start from the third one and find where the space comes. And how did I say do it from every letter? That is where the sequence function comes in. I'm using the sequence function, sequence of this particular cell. If you look at it, it has fetched me the data where all space occurs, position of space. I'll just put it that way, right? But here is the thing, I don't want all of these values. I don't want all places where space came. I mean, the same 4 comes multiple times, because whether you start from first letter, second letter, third letter or fourth letter, you will encounter space in the first time. And similarly, 5th letter, 6th letter to 10th letter, you will encounter the next space at 10th level. So the same space is coming multiple times. But we want only these values to come only once. So what can we do here? I'm going to use a unique function on top of this. Which now tells me where the first space occurs, right? Let me just put it here. So this is where ending space. For each letter you're dealing with, this is where a space occurs. Now, for every letter I have to figure out where does the starting space starts, so that I can extract word out of this list. So where does the starting space start? So the first letter, it's going to be at number 1. For the subsequent letters, it's going to be wherever the previous space ended. So how do we do that? So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sequence function, because for the first one it's going to be 0. For the next one it is going to be the previous starting point, right? And that's a little complicated for me to create. Okay, it's already half an hour behind schedule. So let me just very quickly do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sequence function here. So I'm going to use a sequence of how many letters I want on count of as many spaces as you found, because that many words that are there in my data. And I should have used the hash function here, not D9 but D9 hash. That gives me this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a if function, saying that, if this sequence equals 1, then I want to start at 0. Otherwise, I want to get, using an index function, I'm going to use an index of from this D9 array the value that is one step before my current value. Right? Of course, we don't have time to explain this function in depth. Maybe in another session I can explain this. So this one gives me my starting value. Next thing I can use is a mid function to extract this data, mid of. So the word that I'm using here, mid function here, or I can again do one thing. I can check if this is equals to 1. If this equals 1, then I want left of. Then I can get it using a left function, left of my end space minus 1. Otherwise, if it's not 1, which means second, third, fourth letters, then I want the middle letters, middle of the same B3, comma. If fourth letter is where my space comes, so here the ending space is in the fourth space and starting space is in the first space. So 4 minus 0 minus 1, because if fourth is also space and ending is also space, starting is also space, then we have 10, for example, 10 minus 10th is a space and 4th is a space. So how many characters are in between? That will be 10 minus 4 minus 1. So I give that, I close it. Where do I start? My starting point should be in the mid function. I made a small mistake here. So B3 comma, wherever you found earlier space, that point plus 1, because you found a space earlier, that point plus 1. Start there and have as many values. So this one pulls out all the words from this list. And then one of the thing I can do is, of course, this has to be properly ordered so that you can pull it. So I would use a unique function on this. Filter this list and get only the unique values. And then I can use a countf function. Countf. So in this dynamic array, count how many times this particular word has come. It pulls it across. So now if I change this input text, you would notice that all the values automatically change. All right. So I started with this example. I showed you how to do it. Of course, because we are pretty much running way ahead of schedule or way beyond schedule, I just had to quickly rush through this. So I'll stop here.